Hello and welcome to my channel, SBM Fit Fuel Flow. I'm your host Suzanne, and today we have an extremely exciting topic to talk about, which is reinventing yourself versus midlife crisis. But before we jump into that, let's talk about this week's March challenge. So this week's challenge is prepping 3 days worth of meals. So if you're more of a lunch and dinner person, then for those 3 days prepping the lunch and dinner, and if you're a breakfast, lunch and dinner person, then prepping those 3 meals. Anyways, so I just wanted to get that out there and let you know what this week's challenge is in March. And let's get into the juicy topic. Now, I do have some notes here because this is going to be a 3-part series. Part 1 is reinventing yourself versus midlife crisis. Part 2 of this is going to be midlife crisis reinvention. Okay, why starting over is powerful. And the third one is why midlife/reinventing isn't a crisis. Okay, so we're just going to talk about what we feel today and why we're feeling it and what is going on, and then we're going to dive a little deeper in the other episodes. I'm going to try and keep my episodes under 20 minutes, so it's a quick hear, listen, read, and then we'll get more information next week. Okay, so let's get down to it. Let's break it down together, right? Reinvention versus midlife crisis. And we hear this so often. We hear people talk about whether it's that man there or that woman there. It's like, oh, I think she's going through midlife crisis just because she's doing something different or out of the ordinary, or started doing something that you're looking and saying doesn't quite go with her age. What is that? So here, let's break it down together and ask yourself, are you reinventing yourself, or are you having a midlife crisis? And just know that the difference isn't what you think. Ponder on that a little. Think about, have you ever felt like your life is shifting in ways you didn't expect it to? People often call this midlife crisis. But what if it's actually reinvention? How do you know the difference? People looking from the outside in will call it midlife crisis. Maybe for you, it's not that. It is reinvention. But let's go a little deeper and figure out, what is that difference? How do we distinguish reinvention or reinventing your life versus a midlife crisis? What I do want to point out here is you can reinvent yourself at any time, any age. There is no age limit to reinvention. Most of the times, things like reinvention or midlife crisis occur is usually between the ages of 40 to about 60. Very rarely does it happen in your 30s, mid-30s, but it's possible and it can. So let's dive a little deeper into what is reinvention. What does it mean? Reinvention of yourself is intentional, whereas midlife crisis is more reactive. So, for example, if you're reinventing yourself, it's usually a conscious decision. It's a decision of evolution. You're evolving to this new state, to this new chapter in your life. And it's more growth based. It's like you've outgrown those habits, you've outgrown those people, you've outgrown that routine. You need something fresh, something that aligns more to your values. Now, how do you know that now is the time to do that? Well, we all go through life. We have our ups and our downs, our highs and lows, the learnings, the wins, and that builds character in us. We evolve based on our experiences. We get evolved based on just life, and we just feel like something doesn't fit. We want more, and you start planning and you start thinking. For example, you may want to start a new health routine. You're going to plan for it. You're going to build it into your lifestyle. You tweak your lifestyle to change. So keep that in mind, that it's all intentional, right? Reinvention is intentional. Now let's come to the midlife crisis aspect of things. It's very reactive, right? It usually comes from a reaction of fear, loss, identity confusion. We don't know who we are anymore. It's often impulsive. We often make these impulsive choices and decisions. It feels like we're running away from something. So it's very reactive. Whereas in reinvention is very intentional. Like we want to move into that direction. But midlife crisis, usually it's very impulsive. We do it right there and then. And why do people get confused? Well, both of these have big changes that come into your life, okay? Both can look very dramatic from the outside. Like I said earlier, you could be going through a change and maybe it's a reinvention, maybe you're still not sure if it's reinventing, but it's not quite midlife crisis. But to someone else listening to you or looking from the outside in is like, yeah, I think she's going through midlife crisis, or he's going through midlife crisis, right? So it can look very confusing. And usually this happens in an individual, like I said, between the ages, and this is not me just giving out that number, there's studies on it, between the ages of 40 and up to 60. I mean, it has happened with folks older, but usually within this time frame, because you've kind of gone through certain aspects of your life in that manner, and now you're ready to do what you need to do. And both can be triggered with life transitions. So for example, you maybe want to get more fit and live a healthy lifestyle, but before it was hard for you to do that because you were taking care of the household, you were taking care of your kids and your family, and you just never had time for yourself. And now you have the time and you're like, you know what, I want to get healthy, but again, it's growth. It is adding value to your life, and you're evolving to a different level of life, right? So it's methodical. You're thinking it through. You're doing this plan. You're prepping it. You're moving gradually, slowly to this transition that you want of a healthy lifestyle, or maybe a change in job, maybe owning a business, whatever it may be. So if you think you're going crazy, if you're feeling all of these feels, you're not. It's normal. As human beings, we evolve. That is what we do. What we were in our 20s, we're not those same people that were in our 20s sitting in our 30s and 40s. We're different. Whether there has been life changes, life lessons, or just as adults, we've just evolved. We've just outgrown certain things, and that's okay. So let's dive into some examples of reinvention. Now remember, reinvention is growth mode, okay? You're growing towards whatever it is. So for example, it's very purpose driven. Okay, so maybe you have a corporate job, you have this job for a stable job for many, 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 many years. But at the back of your mind, you've always had that I want to own my own business, right? And you've always wanted to do that, but life happened. You had a family, you had to work 9 to 5, you had to make sure the lights were on, and you could then take care of your kids, and life, just life. And you put that on the back burner. But as you're growing older and you're having more time on your hands because your kids have grown up, they're more independent, you have more time, you start thinking about that dream you had. And you look at it and see, how does it align with your values today? Maybe I want that business because I want to be my own boss. I don't want to work for someone 9 to 5, but I'm not just going to go and quit my job. I'm going to start putting a plan together, putting the business case together, looking at how I want to move in that direction. Um, and then you just, transition into it. Again, purpose driven. That change is purpose driven. And also, you come down to the fact of like, it's long term thinking, like I mentioned earlier. So, if you want to, like, say, for example, maybe you wanted to be a singer and you did a little bit of music school, but you didn't get to complete it because, again, life happened. It's always been on the back burner. Maybe you decide to go back to school. Maybe you decide to be a fitness trainer because that is more aligned to your journey. You want to stay fit and active and you want to lead by example. So you go back to school and you study again. It's a progression moving in to that reinvention stage. Also, it's about self-awareness, right? So you wanna how should I put this? Um, when your kids grow up and you start getting curious, you start getting self-aware, you have more time, you check out different hobbies. Maybe you love photography, maybe you'll take a photography class just to refresh things. um, Maybe take up writing, or I don't know, woodwork, like pottery, whatever. You start exploring because yes, you don't want to be here, you want to be somewhere else, you want to move somewhere else to a different area, chapter of your life, but you may have to try a few things to get there. Nothing drastic, nothing dramatic, just very being self-aware and trying stuff. And also, maybe you've outgrown your circle of friends because you are ready to evolve and they're not. Maybe they still want to party like they're in their 20s and you're just like, been there, done that. I don't want to do that. Now, as humans, we would judge, obviously, like, what is wrong with her? Why is she behaving so old? Oh, she's going through midlife crisis. Or vice versa, if she's doing the opposite. You could call it midlife crisis, but she is, or he is now evolving. So they are going to hang out with people in their communities that align with their values, with their future goal and plan. And it doesn't mean they don't like you or they don't want to be your friend. It's just they're going to hang out a little less with you because they're more evolved and that's their journey, right? Your journey might be very different. Maybe you're not there yet. Maybe you already explored that and you are on the path of your journey. So, there are some things to consider. And usually when you're reinventing, it comes from an evolution space, not from an escape. Not that I want to escape. Like, oh, I'm going to just leave the city and I'm just going to go somewhere else. I'm just going to start everything new because I'm just fed up of what's going on here. That is escaping. That is not solving the problem. That is not solving anything. So I want you to think about that when you're asking yourself the questions like, am I reinventing myself or is this midlife crisis? So think about it like a person who adopts healthy habits. They want to be healthy. They've decided going forward, I want to go back to how I used to feel fit and have that energy. And I have the time now to incorporate this and do a meal prep and whatever it is, right? So that is from reinvention purposes. Now let's dive into some examples of midlife crisis, which is usually a panic mode. And why do we call it a panic mode? It's very reactive. You just react. It's in reaction, impulsive, identity confusion. Like there's a bunch of things that happen. So let's talk about reaction. Let's say a reaction to aging and regret, right? So you suddenly become obsessed with looking younger. Maybe extreme diets, cosmetic surgery, maybe some drastic style changes. And the reason you tend to do that and get into that mode of panic or regret is because you feel like you've lost time. You were doing this job over and over and you didn't get to do this, and you just jump from one to the other. Like you just abruptly quit your job and jump into something you don't even know if that's what you want, but you just feel this is not what you want. And you tend to make impulsive decisions. So the next point would just be impulsive decision making, whereas you suddenly decide, I want to feel young, I want to feel powerful, I'm going to buy that sports car or that muscle car, or you go pick up a Harley because you want to, ride your bike, and it's just a feeling that you have, and it's very impulsive. You want to do that. You want to feel expensive. Or, for example, you have an amazing relationship and your friends joke around and say, oh, did you get permission? Or did your wife give you permission to come? Or did your husband allow you to hang out with the girls today? Whatever. And you just feel trapped. You feel like, what? These people, what they do they not talk to their spouse or their partners? Do they not have to do that? And again, not that necessary you have to. It depends on relationships and understandings within partners. But you then start feeling trapped. And then that impulsive decision comes in. You end a long-term relationship just like that because you feel trapped. You feel like, oh my God, what the hell, right? And the identity confusion, why I say that for midlife crisis and the panic mode is when people try to adopt lifestyles of much younger people. You're maybe in your 50s and 60s, but you're hanging out with folks in their late 20s, early 30s who are partying like crazy, taking all those tequila shots. You're partying and dressing up and looking for validation and rather chasing the validation. Or you're jumping from one hobby to another hobby, trying a different job here or there, everywhere, just because you feel like, and midlife crisis is usually when you do these things, it's filling a void. When you're reinventing, it's more you want to move into the next chapter. There's no void. You don't feel like you're missing anything. You just feel like, I want to do something new. Let's move into that, right? You try to reclaim the past when you're in that midlife crisis through, nostalgia, maybe obsessing over an old flame. Maybe it's, college memories, and it's good to talk about your memories. They're great memories. But if you go back and say like, oh, those were the days, man, I wish I could go back. And you get obsessed with the fact of wanting to go back, then that's midlife crisis because you're not evolving. You're moving back. You're trying to escape from reality and move into a completely different reality. So these are some of the things, like the difference between the two, and I want you to think about it from that perspective. It's very easy for us to not know which is it, but I want to leave you with some questions to ponder on. Ask yourself this: are your choices aligned with your long-term values? Do you feel grounded or panicked when you talk about reinvention? Or if you're panicked, then it's more leaning to the midlife crisis section. Are you building something or are you escaping from something? So if you get too caught up in your nostalgia and way back playbacks, you're not growing. There's no growth. There's no evolution. You're just thinking of the past. You're not moving and looking to the future. Does this feel like you? Ask yourself that question. Does this feel like me? What I'm doing, does it feel like me? Or is this a new persona? Something to think about. So I'm not saying that midlife crisis is a bad thing. There's no such thing as a bad thing. It's just reinventing, trying to happen without clarity. If you go to the extreme, then yes, you are definitely going through a midlife crisis situation. But you have to look at life just a little different. Like, it has to be clear. There has to be some growth. There has to be a new chapter, a new phase, not an impulsive one, a more calm, collected, planned out one. And you might be in the middle of both. You might feel a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. The only thing that's wrong is we as human beings, we as friends, put labels on things. When we stop labeling, it's okay. You may not have reached that path of reinvention or midlife crisis, or maybe you've already been there, done that, and now when somebody else is doing it, you're just like, ugh, get over it. Oh, why is he or she behaving like that? You gotta look at it, flip the script, right? I always say flip the script. So flip it and ask a different question. Maybe they're exploring. They know they don't want to be where they are, but they don't know how to get to the next phase. So there may be some extreme actions, but there also may be some methodical questions and actions or work that they're doing that you don't know about. And it's okay, because it's not for you to know. I mean, we all judge. There's not one single person that doesn't. There's not one single person that doesn't gossip. But maybe flip the script when you're feeling that or you're saying that. Maybe that person's going through something. Maybe that person in their 20s were chasing children and didn't get to enjoy themselves by staying out till late and drinking and taking those tequila shots because they were responsible. They had some major responsibility, but now they do have responsibility, but not to that degree. The kids are more independent, or their family members are more, I don't know, helpful, and they're able to do certain things. So like I said, always be kind, not just to yourself, but to others around you. And I don't want to take up too much time. The next episode is going to be exciting and interesting, but I do want to leave you with a question, and I would love to hear your comments on this. So tell me in the comments, are you reinventing yourself, or are you in crisis mode, or maybe a bit of both? Love to hear it. Would love your feedback and comments on what you thought of this content, and what are your thoughts on the topic. Love to hear it. So stay tuned for part 2. Part 2 is midlife reinvention and why starting over is powerful. So stay tuned for that. And like I leave you every Sunday, have an awesome Sunday and rest of your week. Be kind to yourself. Take time out for you. Love yourself unconditionally. And until next Sunday, have an awesome, awesome, awesome week.